All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am going to go ahead and start with our July 2022 town hall meeting. Hopefully, everybody sees these slides well, and we're going to be posting this up to YouTube for everyone to go over. We have a lot to cover, so I'll try to go as quickly as possible. We're going to talk today about active shooter, safety, disaster preparedness, corporate compliance. We're going to talk about hazardous classifications, body mechanics, HIPAA, hospice, music and memory, QAPI, visitors and residents, some COVID updates, and then we're going to go into our nursing meeting as a secondary slide deck. So start off with safety is a concern of everyone and should be a concern of yours. Here on the campus, we house almost 250 residents and 350 staff. It is becoming a national concern with safety, and we really want to take this to the highest level we can. To maintain safety for everyone in our building, staff throughout the facility, we want to make sure doors are locked. We do not want doors propped open. We want to make sure that we are using our badges, making sure our badges are on us at all times so that we can use those doors as needed. And we want to make sure that we are not allowing other people to utilize our badges or codes for any reason to get into a door, and no utilization of any extra keys, because you never know what's behind that door. We also want to make sure that we're not blocked. Doors aren't blocked by salt or snow. That way you can't get in the doors or out the doors. And sometimes the wind can blow doors open, so please make sure they're shut behind you. But what happens if you do encounter somebody in the building? First things first is you want to contact your direct supervisor if available. If not, contact the Garfield Heights Police. Do not try to confront the person. Wait for the police, but contact them as immediately as soon as possible. As we know, this in America, this has been an ongoing concern with active shooters in multiple facilities. We've seen it in grocery stores, at parades, and we've seen them at facilities. So it is something we all need to know what to do. And this next video is going to tell us a little bit about what to do. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. And I'm going to start resharing the video. So let me just close this out and we will get started on our video presentation for everybody. So let me just make sure that I'm uploading correctly. On to our video. Okay. All right, let's get started with the video.
Guidelines developed by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. We've applied these recommendations for healthcare settings in our community. I encourage you to watch this video, perhaps a few times, and commit the idea of run, hide, fight to memory. I also encourage you to speak to your colleagues, administration, and management about what you learned and what policies and procedures are in place at your facility to help you survive an active shooter incident. This training will force you to imagine the unimaginable, but I hope you will imagine it and think of how you could respond if this happened on your floor, in your clinic, or on your shift. Your life may depend on it. Thank you.
Healthcare professionals, it's hard for us to imagine facing an active shooter taking lives in the very places where we work so hard to save them. Sadly, shootings can happen anywhere, hospitals and healthcare facilities. While we all hope we will never have to face this kind of deadly situation, it's absolutely critical to understand what to do if a facility. That is why the MESH Coalition, representatives from Marion County hospitals, and advisors from law enforcement work together to research and propose a model policy for responding to an active shooter in a healthcare setting. This policy, approved by the boards of directors for both the MESH Coalition and the Indianapolis Coalition for Patient Safety, serves as a template so that Central Indiana hospitals and healthcare organizations can create their own facility-specific policies for responding to active shooter incidents. active shooter incident can occur in your facility on any day at any time.
Excuse me. Yeah, where's 214 actually? It's right down there. Thank you. No, it's-
You have just seconds to react and 3 actions you can take to help make yourself safe. Run, hide, or fight.
The perpetrators are the venues that they select are varied. The victims that they select are varied. Their mindset is to create the most amount of havoc, death, and destruction in the shortest amount of time that they possibly can.
With this type of training, it ensures that all of our hospital and healthcare providers understand how our emergency and first responders will be reacting to these situations, so that we will have similar response, people will have similar training. It will make it much easier, and as a result, could potentially save lives.
In law enforcement, the common phrase is you will react as you have trained. So you're going to do something. The question is, are you going to do something that could potentially save your life?
If you can evacuate the area, leave. Don't bother to take anything with you. Encourage others to go with you, but if they don't follow, don't wait.
Stay here, stay quiet.
If you're with a patient who cannot escape with you, discontinue care and leave. If you can, secure the patient room upon exiting. Do not stop to help the wounded. Exit the area immediately.
So running preserves your ability to stay alive and preserves your ability to respond to the patients who may need your care after the incident. We may be abandoning that patient for a short time, but if we aren't there to respond to their medical needs after the shooting incident, we're of no help to them. So think of it as conserving your resources.
When exiting, keep your hands raised and visible. If you encounter anyone else, warn them not to go into the area. Avoid pointing, screaming, or yelling while evacuating. If law enforcement is present, follow their orders.
Law enforcement will go direct to threat, past casualties, past a lot of victims, be able to end the threat. And it makes a lot of sense because more death is going to fall unless that is done as a priority.
Let's take the away from the facility. Law enforcement has not arrived. Follow your facility's procedures for reporting the incident. This may be to call 911, call facility security, or press a panic button if the area is equipped with one. Make the report even if you think someone else already has. Do not attempt to re-enter the scene until law enforcement has given an all-clear announcement. Depending upon the situation and where you are, the best option may be to hide. Hiding place is one that is out of the shooter's view, provides protection from gunfire, and doesn't trap you or restrict your movement. Block the door to prevent the shooter from entering, and hide behind large objects like cabinets or desks. Remain silent.
Look for places where you might be able to hide behind locked doors, maybe a medication room, maybe a supply room.
We labeled on our floor the safe places to hide. we've instructed our nurses to barricade the doors, move the beds in front of the door, barricade it, and put the patient, and maybe even yourself with the patient in the bathroom, and lock the door, turn off the lights, and just try to act like no one's there.
Follow your facility's procedures for reporting the incident, but only if making the call won't give away your position to the shooter. If anyone with you is injured, do what you can to attend to them while remaining hidden. But while you are hiding, you must also think through what you will do if the shooter finds you. Although it should be your last resort, prepare to fight the attacker.
Incapacitating any kind of suspect and stopping him from doing what he had been doing is your goal there.
Imminent danger. Fight. Your goal is to disrupt or incapacitate the shooter. Even yelling or throwing objects can help by confusing the shooter and making it harder to aim. Act as aggressively as possible. Your commitment to your actions will mean the difference between life and death.
The more you have in numbers, the greater your chances are to be successful in defeating someone that's even armed.
Think of run, hide, fight as more than just what to do when faced with an active shooter. It can be a way of thinking about your surroundings every day. Whether you are always in the same place or you change locations frequently, make it a point to know key features of your environment. Know where the exits are, including stairwells. Know what rooms can be secured and locked. Know how to lock down your area or unit if possible. Pay attention to where phones are. Find out if the facility has panic buttons and where they're located. Know your facility's procedures for reporting an incident so you know who to call and what to say before you ever have to pick up the phone. Be aware of people around you. Keep in mind that an active shooter won't fit any specific profile. He or she may look like any other visitor, patient, or coworker you might encounter on any given day.
We don't want to be too worrisome about it, but we do need to be prepared as a community.
We've been trained on what to do in code situations. So the more that we're trained on this and the more that we practice and have drills, the more hopefully your mind will just go into motion.
Rehearse in your head what you're going to do if this situation were to occur.
Where you can hide, where you can exit, what can you use to fight? Those are not common thoughts, and they need to be. The best weapon you have is knowledge. And something as simple as gearing your mind to run away from the gunshots can save your life. And having the state of mind to take as many people with you when you go saves other lives.
Make run, hide, fight your mindset every day and train yourself to make it your strategy for survival.
All right, then we are going to go back and I'm going to jump back onto our slide deck to get us going here. And right, so we just went through the run, hide, fight, and I think that's the real takeaways of everything is that we are following the instructions to exit safely, try to use a phone to call 911. Make sure when you leave with your hands up. Do not try to confront the assailant unless you absolutely have to. Hide. Utilize med rooms, soiled utility rooms, places where there's codes and that individual may not know those codes. You know, we want to make sure that you have those safe spots on your floor. So we'll look around, know those areas. If you know that a code silver, or you hear a code silver, you want to treat it as if it's not a drill and you want it to exit the facility. You want to go to a hiding spot if you can't exit the facility. And if you can, shut the door behind you, pull a curtain, try to keep patients as safe as possible. If they're close to the door, take them out with you. We have a lot of things that revolve around major events like an active shooter. There are emergency policies and procedures when events happen. Every nurse's station has a book for our disaster preparedness. There's a multitude of things from power outages to severe weather to active shooters. We don't expect everyone to know everything, but we do want them to know where to look. Those policies, as we said, are there so we could quickly look at them and determine what we need to do if there's an individual event. Disaster preparedness is something that really came out in 2016 that CMS really said facilities have to be more prepared and have to have plans for preparation. So we have plans for our top 10 items. We assess it every year. We look at areas like lighting and sewage and waste disposal and fire detection and fire planning and transportation. All that's in that book, even a communication plan. We also need to think about risks like cyber risks and other risks, natural disasters, of course, tornadoes, but everything we try to include, and active shooter is one of those things that we include in that. We have communication plans where what are we going to say to our families? What are we going to say to our staff? What are we going to say to the community? We have a communication individual, Ron Hollowell, who can speak to those if we need them. Cyber attacks, that again is another attack that we look at. You know, individuals that have computer access, please make sure that if you see an email that doesn't look legitimate, that you are clicking on the phishing tab up on the right-hand side of your screen and saying, I don't think this is real. The worst thing it'll do is come back and say, yeah, it's a legitimate email. If not, it's going to catch somebody trying to invade our PHI or invade our HR, and we don't want that. We are going to do drills that we have for fire and other hazardous weather. We just did one, I believe, for tornadoes about a month ago, but they're unannounced. They need to all be treated as if they're real. And we have to analyze what went right, what went wrong, and make corrections. You know, we do have supply boxes in the case of emergency at the nurse's station, have flashlights, some basic equipment, some safety vests. We want to make sure that we know where those are as well. So take some time, look around on your floors for safe spots for policies and procedures for disaster book and these boxes for safety as well. Shifting gears, we're going to talk a little bit about GHS, or the hazardous classification and labeling. Really what this is the federal government came out with a standardized way to identify chemicals so that when somebody has a spill or somebody gets something in their eyes, they can call poison control, they can call the appropriate licensure facilities that attend to this, and they know what to do. And so everything we have, every chemical we have has a label. And that's really important. So just remember, familiarize yourselves with those labels when you're looking at chemicals, and know that there's a book that we have that's a central book that tells us how we can call in for these different chemicals if there's a spill or spill to the eyes, or it gets on your skin and you have a reaction, what we can do. So it is very important that we have those. We shouldn't have anything in our facility that does not have a label and is not in that federal guidelines. Shifting gears, we're going to talk about body mechanics. Body mechanics is very important because our industry, there is lifting, there's physical activity, and with that often comes injury. If we think about it, our back injuries are our #1 injury in healthcare. But how do we avoid that? We avoid that by keeping our back straight, avoiding twisting, keeping objects that are heavy close to our body, and keeping the whole process smooth. Biggest thing, and I think this is on our quizzes, make sure you plan for the activity. So before you go in the room, know what you're going to do. If you can't help somebody, get help. Make sure you have a clear path to the patient and what you're trying to do. Make sure the bed's in a proper position. Ask the patient, what's your strong side? Ask the patient to assist when they can. Provide clear direction to the patients and use other devices as necessary. Process of transferring patients is perhaps the greatest load on our lower backs. So if we don't do it appropriately, we will injure ourselves. And we have to think that body mechanics is what we do every day. We just have to keep our mindset that we have to do it the right way. Certain activities require certain body mechanics to be done the right way. And if we plan our activities, if we don't overdo it, we'll be okay. All right. Next on the agenda is corporate compliance. Something to remember with corporate compliance is almost all corporations have a compliance type setup. We have a compliance hotline that you could call into. It is, again, it's anonymous, but if you'd like a follow-up, then you would want to leave information that person can get back to you with. Sunal is our corporate compliance officer. Most of the time, corporate compliance is in the area of billing, or maybe it's in the area of marketing or confidentiality or social media or anything along those lines. It's a non-retaliation policy, so anyone is encouraged that if they feel something is against the corporate compliance to call that hotline and we can respond to it. HIPAA. We're going to talk a little bit about HIPAA. There's a good few slides on this because it is important. HIPAA is the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act. It was established in 1996, really not that long ago, but it includes medical information and identifiable health information, payment history. There's 18 PHI identifiers. Here's all of them. I'm not going to go through them individually, but things like email address, fax number, telephone numbers, your postal address, your name, of course, your social security number. This is where we have to be careful. We want to make sure that we're not texting or emailing people certain information. When we use our email in-house, it is secure, but when we're emailing people outside of our organization, it is not secure. Text messaging, medical information is not a proper means of communication. We can use our EMR for their communication tools. And we need to report any breach of this, provide notice of private practice. We do that when people come into the facility, and we respond timely if somebody does request medical records to be reviewed. And if we don't do all this, you can end up dealing with the Office of Civil Rights or the Department of Justice, both of which is not be a good thing. There's criminal penalties for HIPAA violations up to, we've seen $1.5 million imprisonment of 10 years. I don't think any of us want to deal with that, so we want to take this very seriously. And again, there's a lot of ways to violate HIPAA, sharing or posting passwords, social media without a consent, leaving computers open and unattended and logged in. These are just a few of those HIPAA violations, and I think that's on your test too. HIPAA really comes down to three parts. It comes down to a privacy part, a security part, and a breach part. The privacy, obviously, as we know, is the health information. The security is the means of which we safeguard that. And the breach part is what do we do if something happens and who do we have to notify? All right, moving on to something that is mandatory to talk about, but it's always good to talk about, is hospice care. A hospice is really a comprehensive set of services provided for the physical, psychological, and spiritual and emotional needs of a terminally ill patient or individual. For us, we work with many hospice. We bring them in when it is needed, when a family or the physician may recommend it or staff may recommend it. We sit down together with a hospice group. We utilize many hospice groups, as I said before. The key with hospice is making sure that there's strong communication between the hospice provider, because we ourselves are not providers, but we utilize providers like Holy Family, Crossroads, just to name a few. But we want to make sure that we have a good plan of care, communication process between their staff, our staff, the physician, the family. It needs to be a seamless group working together for the best for that patient during those last few days or months of their lives. Music and memory. This is something that really was started by a not-for-profit organization. We had applied for a grant early on, a couple years back prior to the pandemic, and received a number of iPads under this program. We used to use iPods, and we'd set up musical stations for the patients or the residents that wanted to listen to music, and we thought it might benefit them. Now we use the iPads Oftentimes we realize that the residents don't like things over their ears. So just listening to the music, we could set up a specialized music playlist for them. We do have an iTunes account through the facility that we can set up with. So please see activities if you're interested in this for one of your patients, and you think that this may help their mood or reduce agitation. QAPI. QAPI identifies problems and opportunities that are reflective in the organization and how they process improvement. So QAPI came about from really auditing by the state. The state saw that we audited things, but oftentimes if they weren't showing improvement, what was being done. So this is really the process of not only auditing individual areas or different processes that we have within the organization, but it's saying if it's not working, what we're going to do to fix it. So quality assurance and performance improvement is the name of QAPI, but it's a process of continually looking at those programs and systems based on data. I think that's very important. We utilize a lot of data when we want to look at this information. How many falls do we have in a month? What time do we have falls? What were the diagnosis of those that fell? And then staff input to correct those issues or make improvements. Why is QAPI important? It assists us all, helps us to provide good resident-centered care, teaches us how to improve care with our residents, and how to provide effective change. How can you contribute? Get suggestions from patients, their families, and maybe from your own experiences, and give it to a manager and talk about, is this a problem on your floor? Is this a problem in your department? And what can we do to work on fixing that problem? This concludes the main slides. We do want to remind everybody, please pay attention to the text messages and or the messages that come across call multiplier for any changes in our PPE needed on the floors or testing. We do know it's somewhat of a struggle to keep up with all of that. So please ask if you have any questions about, do you need to test? Do you need to wear an N95? Do I need to be in a face shield? All those things are important, and we want to make sure we're looking at it on a regular basis. Also, we have a few new rules that are coming out in October. It's called the Rules of Participation. It's phase 3. A lot of it's policy driven, but it's things that we're going to have to tweak. A lot of it's infection control. As we all know, we went through the pandemic. This ROP or rules of participation was actually put off due to the pandemic, and now they're implementing it with our state surveys, and CMS is looking at it as well. Again, that's going to be some more stuff to come. So at this point, this will conclude our July 2022 town hall meeting. Please make sure that you complete your tests that would be associated with this, turn it into Brenda. And if you are on for nursing, please make sure that you stick around and follow up with the nursing and service that will be following. Thank you guys so much for your time.